My wife slept with a TV actor behind my back, so I ruined her reputation, took her to court, and watched her life collapse. My wife and I are both 36 years old, and we've been married for exactly 8 years. The whole situation sucks even more because our anniversary was 2 weeks ago. Anyway, the only background you really need to know is that we don't have any children, and we've always been big fans of TV and movies. It might sound boring, but she doesn't really have any major hobbies beyond that. I used to game but kind of fell out of love with it as I grew older. This is important, there's a show that airs that I kind of like, and my wife loves. I don't want to say too much to identify it, but it's about to head into its 4th season, and it's pretty popular. A particular actor in the show has always caught my wife's eye, and it can be a very annoying thing. I've dealt with women obsessing over attractive celebrities before, and it can get tiring. They'll gush over him right there in the room, but if you did the same over some supermodel, she wouldn't speak to you for a week. Double standards. Anyway, this actor, let's call him Nolan so I don't need to give too much away, isn't super famous. If you watch the show in question, you'd know his face, but most people have never seen him in anything else. He's far from an A-lister like Willem Dafoe or DiCaprio. It's hard to even claim he's B-list because his only well-known production is one TV show. Sure, his filmography lists several other movies and shows, but none of them were popular. As something of a cinephile, I feel like I'm in a good spot to make that claim. So, yeah, I'm good to call him a C-lister, and that's not out of spite for what eventually goes down. Let me take you back to a conversation I had with my wife once, and I've been reminded of it several other times. She saw this guy on TV and said a bunch of nonsense about how he's so handsome, his body so hot, his voice so sexy, and on and on. Then, out of nowhere, she says, "I want him to be in my hall pass." I was very confused, so I asked her to clarify what a hall pass is. To me, it only fits into a high school context, so it didn't make sense. I bet a lot of you know, but for those who don't, a hall pass is a stupid slang term for the one person someone in a committed relationship can sleep with without it being considered cheating. When she said this, I audibly scoffed and told her how ridiculous it was that she'd even say something like that to me. It devolved into a whole argument that night. Before I slept, I realized it was basically impossible that she'd ever get the chance to sleep with Nolan. It was mainly the disrespect of saying that you still desire someone else sexually that got to me. If you feel lust toward someone, fine, but to admit it to your husband? Crazy. For the next couple of days, I was still reeling from the disrespect, and I even wanted to come up with some mega hottie to claim as my hall pass in front of her. It just seemed childish. I decided to be a mature adult and spoke to her at length about how disrespected I felt with the hall pass comment and her thirsting over him in general. She apologized, though it didn't really seem like she understood why, and we left it at that. Over the next few months, maybe 6 or 7, she slipped up at least 5 times, watching the show or seeing him on social media and making stupid comments about how drop-dead gorgeous Nolan was. The first 2 times, I brushed her off, but after that, I gave up because I was tired of having uncomfortable conversations. However, it made me wonder why not doing things that disrespected me was so hard for her. I've slipped up before on things she didn't like, but I've never repeated the offense more than once. Obviously, over the months, Nolan became more of a sore spot for me. I started to get pissed off every time I saw his face on the show. Again, though, he was just a face on a screen, so there was really nothing to worry about, right? Wrong. A convention was coming to the city next to us, and thanks to Nolan's Instagram page, my wife found out that he was going to be doing a meet and greet there. She didn't consult me about going, she just informed me that she was going. She spent the 2 weeks leading up to it gushing nonstop. At that point, I really loved her, but the obsession was deeply irritating. In fact, I got so frustrated that I blurted out, "I really don't think it's a good idea for you to go if you're going to act obsessed like this." She just shot me a horrible look, but I decided to insist. I said, "I really don't think you should go. It's a city away, and you didn't even consult me before making this decision." She said nothing and left the room. Honestly, I was happy to have gotten it out of my system. I assumed she'd gotten the point until the day of the actual meet and greet when I saw her wheeling her suitcase to the door. I asked her where she was going, and she told me to the other city for the meet and greet. My mouth dropped open because I really didn't think she was going to go through with it. My ride's on the way. I'm going with Susie, a friend of hers who had twice been unfaithful to her husband, though the poor chap had no idea. We're going to stay the night in a hotel, so I don't need to come back at night. I'll be back tomorrow morning. To say I was enraged would be an understatement. This whole situation was really touching a sensitive area for me, but I decided I'd let her go, and we'd deal with the aftermath later. In retrospect, that was a bad idea, but it's not like I was going to physically restrain her, so I guess I had no choice. I should have tried harder to stop her from going, but I guess if I did, I wouldn't know what I know now. The entire day went by with basically no communication from my wife beyond a dry text letting me know when she got to the bus station and when she arrived in the other city. Then she went dark until the next morning. I swear I called at least 7 times but got no response, which was incredibly stressful. We weren't on good terms, but it didn't change the fact that I was worried she could have been in danger in a city she wasn't entirely familiar with. I ended up turning into an Instagram stalker, checking the stories of the convention and Nolan, hoping to catch a glimpse of my wife. Among about 34 stories, I finally saw her in one, so I knew she got to the convention safely. That helped put my mind at ease, but I was still pretty pissed. 7 missed calls, and she didn't have the decency to return one of them. It would just be added to the list of issues we had when she got back. As she promised, the next morning, I was woken by the sound of our door closing. My wife had gotten back from her trip, and all I wanted to do in that moment was go back to sleep, but there was a discussion that needed to be had. She came upstairs and found me sitting on the bed. I remember her pulling a really awkward smile as she pushed her suitcase into the corner. "How was the meet and greet? Did you meet Nolan?" I tried to say with as little edge as possible, but I'm sure some came out. The meet and greet was nice. Yes, I did meet him, along with a few others from the show. It was nice to see these people in real life. I'm glad you got to experience that. Now we need to." Before I could get out the rest of the sentence, she jumped in, tears welling in her eyes already. "I know, baby, I'm so sorry. I should have asked if you were fine with me going instead of just choosing to go on my own. That wasn't fair at all. I was annoyed with how things went earlier on, which was why I didn't pick up your calls, but I'm so sorry. The calls at night, Susie and I went to a bar, and I left my phone behind, so I didn't know you called." To be honest, I was disarmed by her apologizing because that was extremely unlike her. While it should have made me feel better, something felt off. Still, I decided to think about it later. I asked if I could see some of the pictures she took, and she happily obliged. Now, at this point, I noticed a red flag. She angled the phone away from my face while looking for pictures. It was subtle, but I'm sure it was intentional. Only after opening a picture did she let me see the one she took, including some of her smiling beside Nolan. She was the one holding the phone and swiping through them. If you have a Samsung Galaxy phone, you'll know that when you're in the gallery and scrolling through images, there's a little bar at the top of the screen with thumbnails of all the photos and videos in that folder. I saw something there. It was tiny, but it looked like a large swath of skin tone, like some section of a naked body. I don't think she took that into account when she was showing me the photos, and I really couldn't say with any certainty what I was looking at. It came chronologically after the convention events, though, that much was clear. I let her keep showing me the images until she was through and made the expected comments about Nolan being good looking and how I was glad she'd met her favorite, all that jazz. But I knew what I had to do. Once she was done, I encouraged her to go take a shower to freshen up, and she agreed with a big smile. Once I heard the water start running, I grabbed her phone right away and went to her gallery. There was one video, the very last piece of media in her gallery, and I played it right away. It started off in a dimly lit room. It looked like a hotel room with soft, warm lights. There was someone close to the camera, and I could hear voices, but I couldn't turn up the volume because I didn't want her to hear. The person near the camera seemed to be propping it up, and once they got it stable, they moved away from it. It was my wife. She was naked. She went to lie down on the bed, and it seemed like she was waiting for something. Suddenly, the voices got a bit clearer as someone else emerged from the bathroom. The person was naked too, and I didn't even need to see the face clearly to know it was Nolan. He moved toward my wife and climbed onto the bed. The video was 11 minutes long, and I had to stop there. I couldn't watch any more. I quickly sent the video over to my phone, cleared any evidence from hers, and left the house. I didn't know where I was going, but my head was swirling, and my heart was pounding. I think I walked for about 20 minutes before deciding it was time to watch the video in full. Watching it was horrible. Is there really anything worse than watching your wife get pounded by some actor you've come to hate because she's obsessed with him? Why did she actually get the chance? Did she throw herself at him? Did he actually like her? What was going on? It was giving me a headache, and I felt so broken. There was nothing I could have done differently, and I recognized that much. I didn't have much in my head as to what I was going to do next, but I knew I had to divorce her. That much, even a fool could tell you. Being cheated on feels like crap, but it literally could have been anyone else in the world, and it wouldn't have hurt this much. That's when I knew I would have to get back at her, and I'd have to make it hurt. So, I eventually headed back home, told her I had to go for a walk because I was feeling nauseous, and then did my best to act normal. It's been a full week since I found out, and she's been exceptionally bubbly. Every time she smiles at her phone, I don't know if she's chatting with Nolan or what, but I've become so paranoid. I'm tired of feeling like this. I need to make her hurt as much as I hurt right now, and that's where I need help because I'm blank on exactly what I can do. I'd love to hear some devious plans I can realistically pull off. Any suggestions are welcome. Hey, at least you know now why she was so eager to attend that meet and greet. Guess she wasn't just there for autographs and selfies, huh? And who knew conventions could be such great networking events for extramarital affairs? Nothing says payback like hitting her where it hurts, her wallet. Plus, imagine the look on her face when she realizes her little fling ended up costing her half of everything. The first thing I did was call up a divorce lawyer. I had a close friend who went through a messy divorce but managed to come out of it pretty well, so he referred me to his lawyer. We started working right away. Next, I called up Susie, my wife's very close friend. I asked her to meet up, and she agreed. We met at a bar. Now, Susie is loose, let's put it that way. Part of me was tempted to get with her just to ruin my wife's friendship, but it wasn't the right time. Maybe it never will be. The point of meeting her was to see if anyone knew anything about what went down between my wife and Nolan. Susie was the most likely person to have some insight. She's also a drinker, so as long as someone else is paying for shots, it's easy to get her talking. We had some drinks, and she had way more than me. After some small talk, she was wasted. I told her I was planning to surprise my wife with a designer bag and asked her what she'd recommend. She rambled on about Chanel and Hermes. I didn't care about the details, that was just to set her up. Once I noticed she was really drunk, I struck. So, Susie, my wife told me everything. I know she slept with Nolan, that actor. Through her haze, her eyes widened for a second before she went back to normal. How did that happen? I'm just curious. At first, she refused to tell me. She took another drink, swaying in her seat, then let it slip that my wife had been excessively flirty with Nolan and had passed him a note with her number on it. My wife is attractive, and as much as I hate her right now, I can admit that. Apparently, she waited until much later, and Nolan actually texted her with just a hotel name and room number. More famous actors probably wouldn't do something so stupid, but Nolan isn't a big name in Hollywood. What about the tape? Did he know she made it? That was one of my suspicions. Nolan might not have known she recorded their encounter. That had a lot of potential. Again, Susie seemed a little shocked that I knew so much, probably surprised my wife actually came clean. But yep, she confirmed that my wife had taken it secretly. She also let me know that my wife had watched it with some of her other friends. That was infuriating. My wife was basically becoming a porn star for her friends. I knew I'd be taking out the trash soon. I got all the info I needed from Susie, recorded the entire conversation, and ordered a ride to take her home. Hopefully, she wouldn't remember any of this in the morning. I was trying my best not to tip my soon-to-be ex-wife off too early. As time went on, the lawyer said things were a go. So, one night, while we were watching Nolan's stupid show, I told my wife I wanted a divorce. She actually choked on the soda she was drinking, spluttering for almost a minute before finally calming down. She looked at me, nearly hysterical, asking if I was joking. I told her I wasn't. I thought I'd prepared for this moment, but it was extremely awkward. I didn't want to reveal everything I knew yet. In the end, I couldn't take all her questioning and crying, so I left the house. She called me 21 times that night, but I didn't pick up once. The next morning, I arranged with the lawyer to have her serve the divorce papers at work. Needless to say, it was embarrassing for her. After I got the confirmation that she'd been served, I went back home. When she got home, it was clear she'd been crying for hours. She came up to me, got on her knees, and started bawling, trying to say something, but it came out as mumbling. It was infuriating. It went on for 20 minutes. Every time I pushed her away, she wailed louder. Eventually, I sternly asked her to go upstairs and pack her things. She kept crying and saying how sorry she was, calling it a mistake. When I heard that part, I laughed and pushed her off me. She looked up at me sadly, and I left the room. In a few hours, she was packed and out of the house. Apparently, she's staying with Susie, who, even if she remembers anything from that night, certainly won't volunteer that she spilled everything to me. Anyway, what's left is for the divorce to be finalized. I still have one major trick up my sleeve, but I need things to be officially over first. Hopefully, I won't lose interest in revenge by then. We'll see. Friends, calling up Susie for some gossip juice was a genius move. Who knew liquid courage could spill so many secrets? And serving her those divorce papers? Ice cold. Talk about dropping a bombshell. There was a lot of back and forth, a lot of stalemates, and just a lot of stress, but it's finally over. I'm going to have to pay alimony, but, thankfully, Her infidelity, which she did a poor job of denying and I was able to prove easily, made the payments a lot less heavy. Plus, the payment terms won't last very long. In the process, I exposed Susie and everything she'd let me in on. That was definitely salt to the wound for my wife. A lot of money was split, but I kept the house after an annoyingly long battle, which was good enough for me. Now, here's where the fun begins. I had held on to that video since I took it off her phone. Nolan may be C-list, but he's still famous, and there's nothing Hollywood loves more than gossip. So, who did I hit up first? TMZ. Yep, I let them know what I had, and I did a very good job of anonymizing myself. Even though I don't think they snitch on their sources, I'm not used to the tabloid lifestyle, so I was trying to be as careful as possible. Once I proved I had what I claimed, I got to talking with a journalist from TMZ and even made a bit of change off it. Not much, but not too little either. I must have refreshed TMZ's site 100 times, waiting for them to go live with the story. It wasn't the same day, but eventually, it showed up on their website. The next day, my favorite touch, the name they gave her. After all, everyone wanted to know who the mystery woman who slept with Nolan was, and they made it clear that Nolan was unaware of the recording. Using the same throwaway email account I used for the correspondence, I sent a link to the article to my ex-wife's email address. At this point, all I could do was wait, especially since I wouldn't directly see her reaction to the article. That's what I thought, at least, until she knocked on the door to our house 2 days later. She looked deranged and kept saying, "I know it was you. Admit it was you." I kept playing dumb, but I was intentionally doing it over the top because I wanted her to know it wasn't just karma, some universal force punishing her. No, she needed to know it was me. I could almost see the exact moment when she realized I was playing coy. It's like she snapped. She lunged for my throat, clawing and striking. I fell over from the force, but it wasn't hard for me to get her off me. Thankfully, a neighbor had seen the whole thing. All her noise attracted attention, and the police were there within minutes. Yes, I pressed charges, which was incredibly satisfying. Most of her family lives in other states, and she and Susie had fallen out, so I hope it took her a while to find someone to post bail for her. Anyway, the assault charge was just the cherry on top. I didn't plan for that to happen. The real big thing was her going to court for unlawful surveillance. She recorded Nolan without his consent, and even though she wasn't responsible for the leak, it only existed because she made it illegally. The case dragged on, especially since Nolan wanted punitive damages for the harm the leak caused his career. Apparently, he lost a job in a movie series aimed at younger audiences because of it, which made me feel good. Unsurprisingly, Nolan's lawyers were a lot more high-end than what my wife could afford. She took a lot of my money, but I was glad to see her wasting it on the consequences of her own actions. Every update I heard on the case, whether it went her way or not, made me very happy. One headline called her a groupie. That was fun. To cut a long story short, she had to spend 2 months in jail and pay a $1,000 fine. As far as I'm concerned, she got off pretty easy, but I'm allowed to be vindictive, aren't I? Well, friends, now that things have settled down and she's in jail, I feel so much better and so satisfied. All I can say is that if you get a sign someone is cheating on you, run and never look back. And if you can get revenge in the process, never pass up the chance. That's it for me. Take care, y'all. Not everyone's as lucky as Kim Kardashian. Congratulations on mastering the art of divorce warfare and serving up that video to TMZ, pure genius. Let's not forget the cherry on top, your ex-wife's stint in jail. So, here's to you, the vengeful virtuoso, the maestro of matrimonial mayhem. What would you have done differently? Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.